With everyone so busy these days, it's more important than ever that families organise themselves and get meal times planned ahead of time. I'm going to show you how you can harness the power of this pot to make a satisfying, nutritional meal that your family will absolutely love. That's what's coming up today on Cooking Together, Cooking Forever.
Your turn to set the table and do dishes after dinner.
No, it's not. I did it yesterday.
We had pizza out of the box yesterday. We used paper plates and plastic forks.
Yeah, but I threw everything in the trash.
Doesn't count. Besides, I already said you're doing it.
Mom!
Okay, enough, you two. I think you both should help set the table and clean up.
Mom, that's not fair. Can't we make something simple to prepare so we don't have so much cleanup to do?
What to make for dinner that doesn't require a lot of cleanup? Well, I'd love to hear your suggestion for that. Why do you think I ordered pizza last night?
You know, if you're trying to make something for dinner that doesn't require a lot of cleanup, I have the answer.
What do you have in mind?
It looks like you already have most of the ingredients for a delicious beef stew, and it can be made in one pot.
Well, every time I make stew, the meat comes out a little dry.
Stewing really isn't hard at all. All you need to do is follow a few simple rules. Let me show you how. Let's get cooking together.
Cooking together, cooking forever.
Stewing is one of the oldest forms of cooking. There are records that the ancient Greeks used this technique to prepare their meals. It's also a very practical method because it uses the tougher cuts of meat that are also much less expensive. I'd like you to meet my friend Lexi. Hi, Lexi. So how are you today? Good?
Good, how are you?
I'm fine. Have you ever stewed?
Yes.
Good. Well, that's wonderful to know. So today, we're going to make a beef stew. You can make stews with lots of different cuts of meat, but we're going to use beef chuck. Now, this is less expensive, a little tougher, but when you make a stew, you cook it for a very long time, very slowly, and it allows that meat to really soften up and gives it the most wonderful flavour to the stew. We have a number of ingredients here that we're going to use in our stew. As I say, we have the chuck, we have some already cut up here. We have onions, carrots, bay leaf, celery, garlic. This is a little bit of brown sugar. This just adds a little sweetness to our stew, which makes it really, really rich. But as you can see here, we've cut this beef into chunks. We're going to do exactly the same. Do you want to know why we cut it into chunks?
Yes.
When we cut it into chunks, what happens is each piece, when we cut it, ends up with 4 sides. So that when we then brown it in our pot, all 4 sides get brown. And that browning is natural caramelization of the sugars in the meat, which gives the meat its really wonderful, rich taste and means our stew tastes so much better than if we didn't do that first. So we're going to cut this, all right? Now, remember, cutting techniques, you want to hide your fingers out the way, rock your fingers forward, and you're going to make a slice right down the middle. Okay? And we're going to cut these then, each of those pieces, into sort of 1.5 2-inch cubes, just like that.
Is that good size?
That's wonderful, yes, perfect. This is a nice hearty stew, so we don't want tiny little pieces of meat or vegetables. We want to keep them nice and big so we really feel like we're getting a really good meal. The pot we're going to use, you want a large stew pot of some sort. You could do this in a Dutch oven. If you want to cook this really fast, you could opt to do it in a pressure cooker if you're familiar with how to use those. Of course, there's obviously the slow cooker, which means you could put this on first thing in the morning, and Mum could go off to work and come back at night and walk in the house, and you have a wonderful dinner already for you to eat as soon as you come in, which is really good. The other thing we're going to do, we're going to take this bowl, and in this, we're going to pour this flour. You want to pour that in there for me? And we're going to season the flour with a little bit of pepper, and probably about half that salt, maybe not quite as much as in there, about half. All right, we'll just give it a little stir around. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to coat all our meat pieces with the flour. So you can put all your meat in there. And we put the rest in here as well. You can put that in. All right, now I want you to get your hands in there and I want you to toss that meat around in there and coat it all over. The reason we do this is that this not only seasons the meat, but it also provides a thickener for our stew, because we want the liquid for our stew to be fairly thick, not thin like in a soup. While Lexi's doing that, I am going to put a little bit of bacon here in my pot, and we're going to render the fat out of it. It's just an extra little thing to make it a little richer and more flavorful. You could just use regular oil. Lexi, we're going to be ready to add our first batch of beef. I'm going to space them out and allow them to sit in there for a few minutes, and as they brown, we're going to turn them over. Again, remember, we're caramelizing the natural sugars in the meat, which are going to make the end stew taste absolutely wonderful. We have carrots, celery and onions, and I'm going to put those in the pot with a little tiny bit more oil so they don't stick. Turn the heat down a little bit, because we want these vegetables to get brown, but not too fiercely like the meat was, okay? So we have onions. You see they're cut in chunks. They're going to go in. And then we have carrots. Good old carrots. And then some celery. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit of garlic. I'll scrape that in with my hand. And that is going to cook for a few minutes too, to get a little bit of colour.
Yes. What do we do with the vegetables when we're done?
They're going to stay in there, and then we're going to add the meat back in, and then we're going to add the other ingredients that we have here, which includes the stock.
All right.
And we have sugar and bay leaf. So now our vegetables are lovely and brown. Can you see that?
Yes.
So now we're going to add the stock. And Lexi, I'm going to have you pour it in gently
All right.
while I stir and scrape up all the stuff on the bottom. Oh, that sounds great. By scraping up the bottom, we're scraping up the particles that had stuck to the bottom when we were cooking the meat. And we put those into the broth, which helps to make the broth taste better and therefore make the stew taste better. You want to put the beef in? Be careful because it's a little hot. So all these ingredients are going to go in. We're going to bring it to a boil, turn it down to a simmer, and then we're going to cook it, let's say, for about 1.5 to 2 hours. After about an hour and a half, we're going to check it and see how nice and tender the meat is. Let's taste a piece. Is that good? I think it's definitely cooked, don't you? Our meat is lovely and tender now, and it's ready for us to eat. So we're going to go ahead and dish a bowl up for ourselves, okay?
All right.
You excited?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Hello again, I'm Allison Reed, familyFare's registered dietitian, serving up today's Nutrition Bites. Today we learned about stewing, a moist, slow cooking method that transforms a low-cost, tough cut of meat into a tender and juicy treat. Stews retain nutrition from ingredients because any nutrients that seep out into the liquid are consumed during the meal. And cooking everything in one pot saves on dishes, which I'm sure everyone can get used to. Make an effort to use a wide variety of vegetables in your stews and serve over brown rice or with a crusty whole grain bread, a side of fruit, and a glass of milk for a well-balanced meal.
Okay, so today we learned how to harness one pot to make a delicious meal, this beautiful beef stew. And you're not limited to the vegetables or the meat you use. Any inexpensive cut of meat makes the most perfect stew. And of course, there are many other vegetables you could use. Now tell me, what did you learn today?
I learned that you can put bacon in the stew to make the meat nice and brown and tender.
Great, and it makes it taste really good too.
Right.
Give it a taste. And can you tell how lovely moist that meat is? It's all just falling apart in our mouth, right? And you can't talk. Well, we hope you enjoyed that. For some other ideas and suggestions, please visit the website. And until next time, this is Gaynor saying to you and your family, remember, cooking together means cooking forever. Bye now.